Hey guys, this is Vidhan. Welcome back to our channel. And this is a time we have one of the toppers of CT21 with us. So you all know that we have taken interviews of CT2020 toppers before. So we thought why not take interviews of CT21 toppers as well. So that we can understand their psyche, especially how they dealt with the change in pattern and how they prepared their strategies, everything. So guys, today we have Derek Joseph with us who had scored 99.99 in CET 21 and who has recently completed his internship with Abbott. So, first of all, congratulations, Derek, for scoring so much in CET 21 and for your internship as well. So, how do you feel after getting into JB and finally completing your internship that too in Abbott?
Thank you so much. So it's been a long journey since I started preparing for CET. And I've just been feeling more great and confident after each step. Like since I started preparing for CET, and then once the CET results came out, once I got into JB, seeing a much higher level, a much higher standard that I had to adhere to, and that led to the preparation for the internship, and those 2 months with Abbott were definitely fruitful for me, especially since I want to take up marketing. I've got a marketing role, and it just provided me with a lot of experience, especially since I'm a fresher and this was my first experience into a proper corporate company.
I'm sure that would have been amazing with for you, especially interning with the company, such big company Abbott. And it truly feels amazing. Even I can remember my internship with PepsiCo. It was so amazing to have finally got an internship with PepsiCo and finally successfully completing it. So yeah, again, congrats. So my second question would be, when did you start your CET specific preparation? And did you appear for other exams?
Yeah, so I started my preparation for CET around January. So in November, December, I was preparing for NMAT and SNAP. And once those exams were done, I immediately jumped onto CET. Why I delayed my CET prep till January because there was a delay in that. Because generally also CET is conducted in March, which is after all the other examinations. And this time there was rumors that it would be delayed further. But yeah, since January, I started preparing for CET specifically.
But you got good amount of months to prepare because it was delayed by quite a few months. So yeah, good for you.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
Perfect. So how did you prepare? How many mocks did you give and what were your scores like initially and maybe later towards the end of your preparation?
So I gave a lot of mocks. I gave about more than 50 mocks of just CET. Obviously, there was a time duration. It didn't happen in March. It happened towards the later end of the year. And because of that, I had a lot of time. But I did give more than 50 mocks, and I analyzed each one of them. And my scores did keep, initially it increased a lot. I think I started around 100 because 110 because I had done a lot of prep for NMAT and SNAP, and towards the end it did go about the 150s, but it also depended on the different mocks that I was giving. Some were more difficult, some were more easy. But yeah, at least in the initial 20-30 mocks, there was a huge increase in the marks that I was getting.
That's really good. Yeah, you increased it all the way to 150. But again, it was because of these many months that you were able to give 50 mocks, right? Else it would have been much lesser, somewhere around, I think, 25, 30, 35. Or you would have stuck to
Oh, I
50 months, you think, till March also.
maybe not 50, but definitely more than 30, 40, because I knew for the examination like CUT, there has to be more focus on the mocks, according to me at least, rather than studying it chapter wise or portion wise. So I usually used to keep a target of at least a mock a day or one mock in 2 days. And there were some days where I would even give two mocks in one day just to go through it, because yes, we did get a lot of time, but we didn't know when the
Correct.
exam would actually happen. It could happen. It could have happened in March, April, May, or like we didn't have clarity on that. So I always had to be prepared. So I wouldn't say that it was just because of the time.
Right. So that's what we tell our students, that it's more about giving mocks and analyzing those questions rather than just reading those chapters again and again. Because if I look at a question, I think कि अरे ये हो जाएगा मुझसे, but when I actually get that kind of question during my mocks, it becomes really difficult for us to solve. So which is why practice is really important. So amazing. My next question would be, so this time we saw a change in pattern and many people lost scores because of that. So tell me, what was the first thing in your mind when you first saw the change in pattern?
So it's interesting. I was in slot 2. So when I was leaving my home for the examination, that's when I came to know that there was a change in pattern. So I didn't have a lot of time to change my strategy. And it was a huge setback in my head, at least before entering the exam, because up till then, how I prepared was I had divided the sections and time wise. Like I would maybe spend 1 hour or 1 hour 15 minutes into LR. And I divided like that. And that had gone out completely. So then my approach was just that I've given so many mocks. I know the level of difficulty that I am used to and what I'm comfortable with. So then I would look at each question and see that if I can complete, if I should be completing it within a minute, and if I can complete it within a minute, I'll go for it. But if it is a question which I think would take up a lot of time, I would leave that for the second round. So my plan was to, and that's what I did. I went through all the questions for in one round, did all the easier ones, and then left whichever I thought would be tough for the second round. So I wouldn't miss out on any section or any type of question which I shouldn't be missing out on, which is easier to
That was
capture.
exactly my strategy when I went for the exam. Even I had appeared for CT 21. And
Okay.
even I was going through each and every question and seeing if I could complete that in less than 1 minute or 1.5 minutes. If yes, correct. And if I feel that it could be done, but it will take thoda sa more time, then just mark for review. And that's what
Exactly.
I've told my students as well. If you have prepared well, then you will be able to solve all the questions despite whatever the pattern is. So you don't have to worry about that. You should just have that confidence कि अगर मैंने पढ़ाई किया, I'll be able to solve all the questions no matter whatever the pattern is. I just have to stick to that 1.5 minutes per question and we'll be good to go. So yeah, so next question would be, what was the strategy for quants? I mean, if the pattern wouldn't have changed, what strategy you would have stuck to?
For quants, for me personally, it was again all about managing time. My quants wasn't the strongest, so I decided to keep more time for LR rather than quants. But again, this is all, it depends on the day and on the paper. It could be that the quant section is easier for me rather than the LR. So I would keep around, I think 40 to 50 minutes for quants. And I was not great with DI. So I decided that maybe DI I'll keep for later on. Again, all my strategies were based on these rounds, that I would do one round first, do all the questions or do all the individual questions which I knew could be done within a minute, and then go back to solving the DI sets, especially, which I would leave for the end because there's no calculator in CAT. So you have to do estimation calculation. So it
Right,
would
so
take
this
a little bit
was
more time.
for the change in pattern, and if it would have been a normal paper, you'd have stuck to around 40 to 50 minutes for quants, you're saying.
Yeah, it would depend on how easy I was also finding LR.
Okay.
Like I would go through I would see when I would give the quants paper to the first round, I would understand how difficult or easy it is. If I was finding it easy, I would give it a little more time because in the end, for me, it was not about scoring high in quants or scoring high in LR because sectional scores don't matter. What matters is how many marks you get in total in those 2.5 hours. So for me, it was about how many. If I was efficiently scoring marks, like I was scoring in that 14 minutes, I was getting a good amount of marks. If I thought I was getting a good amount of marks, then I would stick to it. Otherwise, I would leave some of the questions.
Correct.
It's all about getting the certain number of marks in the 2.5 hours that we're given.
Understood. Okay. And again, what was the strategy for LR?
For LR, since I found it to be my strength, I think I would usually give about 1 hour 15 minutes for LR. It would depend on maths. Like my total target would be maths and LR together should finish within 1 hour 45 minutes, 1 hour 50 minutes, and leave 40 minutes for abstract reasoning and work.
But was there anything
So
as
within
such?
LR also.
Wait. Sorry.
So within LR also, I would attempt most of the questions in given both the rounds, the first round and the second round of attempting a section. And here, I think I would ideally leave 2 puzzles, which I thought were the toughest, and attempt. I think there would be about 4 or 5 puzzles. So I would attempt 2 or 3 puzzles that I found easier. Which again, in the first round, it's important to gauge and judge which you're best suited to attempt within the time frame.
Right. So you used to attempt the questions in flow for LR, or you had separated puzzles and traditional logic as such?
I would separate them actually. So I would mark them the ones during the exam you get this option to mark it, right? And you want to go back to the question. So I would mark the puzzles that way, so that when I'm in the first round I would do the traditional questions and mark the puzzles in a certain way, so that I could go back to the puzzles that I thought were easy using that option. It was very important for me to mark the questions that I wanted to go back in the second round. So it was organized, and I wouldn't waste time again going back and judging a question if I want to attempt it or not.
Perfect. So this was a strategy of Derek for LR. And again, the last two sections, what about VA and AR? What was your strategy for them?
So abstract reasoning and verbal, again, I'd club them together. Together, I want to finish them in 40-ish minutes, like I mentioned. Maths in LR, 1 hour, 45 minutes. This would be 45 minutes. And here for AR, it was just a lot of practice. And one thing for me, at least, I realized that I could not do all of the AR questions, because even if I spend 2-3 minutes, I wouldn't get it. So again, a lot of practice helped me to judge that within 30-40 seconds if I was going to solve it or not. And if I wasn't, I had to leave it, even though initially I found it difficult to leave questions. But yeah, for AR, I had to do that. And for verbal, one thing that I would do is, before going through the long comprehension, I would go through the questions that they had asked. So if there were 4-5 questions about the reading comprehension, I would go through that first. So that when I'm reading the whole article that they've given, I don't have to read it very in detail. I just need to pick out which are pertaining to the question that are asked and just read about them in detail and answer the question. Otherwise, it would consume a lot of time to go through the whole passage thoroughly and then look at questions.
So you'd read that particular question first, or all the 4-5 questions of the RCs, and then
I would just go through the 4-5 questions to see the keywords. Like if there are 10 paragraphs in the passage, the questions would be about maybe 4 or 5 passages or paragraphs. So I need to focus on those paragraphs. That would help saving me time instead of having to leave a comprehension or RC completely.
That's a good strategy. In fact, unlike CAT RCs, which are really tough, CETs RCs are quite easy, and if you just have a look at the questions, you can easily spot the keywords and right away mark the answers.
Yeah, definitely. But in CAT, you get time allocated. In CET, is about doing it faster. So that's why it's easier, but it's faster. That is the whole gist of theme of CET.
Understood. So Derek, tell our aspirants if you're a fresher or you had a work ex after your graduation, and what have you graduated in?
I am a fresher. I graduated in 2021. I did my mechanical engineering from KJ's, from my College of Engineering in Mumbai itself.
So how did you manage with your final year, the preparation for CG 21?
So during the final year, it was difficult, definitely, because I had my final year project also, as you know, and we had picked up a difficult project which needed, even though the classes were online, we had to go physically for completing that project. But again, I also knew that I have to focus on not just engineering, but also beyond engineering, wherein my focus was of CAT. So as I mentioned, regardless of my schedule outside with college and everything else, I decided I have to give a mock at least once a day or once in 2 days and spend almost the same amount of time analyzing it. And that was rigid. Maybe I would do it late in the night once I'm done with everything else. But yeah, I knew that if I give up on this, if I don't, be committed to the CET prep, post my engineering, I won't have as many options as I would after, getting into a great MBA college. So there it was important to look at my goals beyond just completing engineering.
But did you ever think कि अभी इसके साथ कर लूँगा MBA का entrance तो निकल जाएगा, बाद में will be very difficult with job, तो तभी मेरे को I don't want that stress.
Yeah, definitely that was also a thing, because again we had a college online, so I think it was still definitely not as intensive as having a full-time job.
Correct.
And it was also what I knew, since it was online, I had to take advantage of doing college from home. I would get little more time at home, and it is important to since extra time hai hamare paas at this point, focus it on the CET, focus on your entrance examinations, because as you said, if you're in a job where you go home, you leave in the morning, come home at night, it's going to be much more difficult than this. And that was a thought in my head.
So guys who are in the final year of your colleges right now, you have time to prepare for CT. Don't think the final year, so you've got a lot to study or these final year projects. Trust me, after you start working, it becomes really difficult, and finding an hour or two a day also becomes a task. So just devote some time during your final year for CET preparation, and you'll be good to go. So, Derek, one penultimate question would be, what do you do to motivate yourself? And is there any message for all the aspirants who are watching you right now?
So one major thing that I would say is initially जब मैंने सोचा था ना कि entrance examinations करना है, so it was like और पढ़ाई करना पड़ेगा और मेहनत, like engineering के साथ और पढ़ाई करना पड़ेगा. But then I realized that this is just basically logical thinking. Even the mathematics, it's not some complicated engineering mathematics. Right. So it's all based on logical thinking and solving. So I sort of started thinking of it as a game. कि इसको भी solve करना है, इतने marks लाना है. I would keep benchmarks. अभी इसमें 130 लाना है, 140 लाना है. So there I stopped thinking of it as, similar to the studies I was doing in engineering, and separated it out into a challenge and a game, and that kept me very interested in it. That's why, as I mentioned before, there were some days जहाँ पे मैं दिन में 2 mark देता था. That was just because I motivated myself to think of it as a challenge and as a game that I need to, overcome, rather than 5 घंटे पढ़ाई करना बैठ के, because that would have been tougher for me personally, and maybe for some of the people also watching.
That's amazing, and I'm sure that would help motivate some of the aspirants who are watching the video. And one last final question would be, what are your next, are there any plans have you thought of 2 years down the line?
2 years down the line, I would say is firstly, I'm in, JBIMS, so securing a placement, and I'm interested in marketing. So my plan is to enter in the marketing field. As a fresher, I think right now it's again important to gain experience, absorb and learn as much as I can in the first few years. And post that, start working on, going to a more senior position, becoming a manager, becoming a leader. But yeah, first 2 years, I would say my priority is just, learning and absorbing from everyone around me, and working as hard as possible to benefit from the platform I am on.
And of course, keep inspiring the aspirants as well. Whoever.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Derek. This video, I'm sure, would really help all the aspirants out there. And your strategies, what you think, your psyche would definitely help them with the paper that would be coming up in August end, towards the August end. Again, that's tentative. They don't know when would be the final exam. But again, if there are any changes with the pattern, I'm sure they'll now know how to face it. So thanks, Derek. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for being
Thank
on
you
the
so
channel.
much. All the best to everybody.